All right, welcome everybody. I'm happy to be here for the final edition of our Embracing Excellence information session. And this has been a heck of a journey. We've covered a lot of ground. Actually, we tried to run this session yesterday and we had some digital gremlins, so we had to reschedule for today. So my apologies to those of you who were logged in yesterday and had to defer to today. And also, if you were logged in yesterday and you can't make it today, we are recording this session as we do with all sessions, and I hope you can pick it up on the recording at the very least. So let's get on with this. And again, I'm just so happy to be here to be part of what CME is doing, Canadian Manufacturers and Exporters. What we do is we help manufacturers grow. We're Canada's oldest and largest manufacturing association, and we're here to help. We're a non-for-profit, so all the things that we do are designed to help you. So this particular um, this particular webinar is going to be focused on all of the things I've covered over the previous 10 webinars or so. I'm just going to tie all those things together to help you make it make sense. But I realized I haven't done a good introduction of myself, so here I go. So high level overview. Who is this guy that's talking to you? I want to be more conversational today as I learn and grow in my own right here. And just a little bit about me. So I was a lean facilitator with CME from 2008 to 2013, and then I took on a couple of other roles as the operations manager at Manitoba Land Titles, and then as general manager at Salford. And in both those scenarios, I used lean techniques to help transform the organization. In the case of Salford, to make it more efficient and more appealing for sale. It was called Valmar Airflow at the time, and it was successfully sold to Salford, who's doing a great job running it today. At the property registry, it was all about transforming the organization from 20 to 30 years of stagnant paper processes to digital, to 90% paperless within the span of about 5 years. And we did that. How? Through lean principles and so many other things. But the lean principle piece helped us come up with a plan, come up with a roadmap, and more than anything else, helped us to engage people. Before those experiences, I was the business redesign manager at West Steel here in Manitoba. And the mandate in that project was to transform the organization to double the output in the same square footage. Imagine doing that. Think about your factories and your offices and your spaces today. How do you double the output in the same square footage? It's a big feat, and it's hard to do, but it's not impossible. We did that with a very strategic project we called Factory Redesign, and that was led by Ian Marshall, who happened to be a CME facilitator at the time, and he was my supplier. We managed to do that, and West Steel is going strong and competing globally. Little bit of credential. I'll just be very brief here. I am certified as a Lean Master Black Belt. I've got certifications at the U of M in management and leadership and other things, as well as supply chain at Georgia Tech. Been married for 27 years almost, and you see a picture of my family and I there, as well as I love doing charitable activities, particularly if I could tie it into outdoor sports and recreation. And of course, this is a little guy that keeps me going. That's my newest grandson. His name is Louis, and he likes to have me out to play. So moving on with the meat and potatoes of this webinar. What is it all about? Pulling pieces together. Let's make it meaningful in everything we do at CME. And even if you're not engaging with CME, what you need to do with your leadership, and everybody's a leader in some way, is you need to make it meaningful, make it business practical. Our model here at CME is learn by doing. In some of our entry-level courses, that's through simulation. But in our more advanced courses, it's through on-site transformation, sometimes through homework assignments, sometimes through host organization hosting us, for instance, in Greenbelt. In fact, we've got 15 Greenbelts just on the other side of the wall here who are together for a day, their last day of module 2 cycle time reduction, and they just spent 3 days transforming three processes over at New Flyer Industries as part of their learn by doing activity in cycle time reduction. Fantastic results and absolutely great team members. So it has to be meaningful because think about yourself. Nobody wants to be told what to do, but they can be led to doing the right things if they understand the why. I know I'm certainly that way. If somebody just comes and parachutes particularly a new idea and says, John, do this, my first reaction would be, wait a minute, why? We need to know the why. And then why do we need to know the why? It's because we need to understand that it's meaningful. If it's not meaningful for personal development, professional growth, and in the lean context, better support for our customers, we shouldn't be doing it. That's the bottom line. So I'm going to walk you through these pieces again, the high level of what we've covered in the previous modules. And I really hope this inspires you to register for the Lean Conference coming up June 6th to 9th. So, pardon me, June 9th to 12th. And if you're already registered, please take the time to come and meet me, say hi, tell me a story of one of the areas where you've pushed yourself outside the comfort zone and where you've been inspired to make some change, because that's my fuel to keep going. So in webinar 1 and 2, what did we talk about? We just talked about lean as a tool for change for the most part. And maybe my favorite line of all in lean is this frames everything around what we're trying to do, is this using time as a competitive weapon. And this applies to any industry. If we can shrink our lead times and shrink our cycle times, which result in shrinking lead times, then we become more competitive. We are able to do more with less, literally. Lean is not about working harder. It is the proverbial working smarter. And how do we do that? By working together through methodologies that help us understand where value is being added, where waste is ingrained in our process, and how do we shift that ratio. More on that in a couple slides from now. So focus on reducing the time it takes to do your job. That's it. And we start with our job, but then we extend that to our entire business, and then we extend that throughout our entire value stream. That's what we really need to do. And Ford was really good at this. He knew how long it took to get iron ore from the ground transformed into a car sitting on the parking lot ready for sale. Yeah, this is just a little fun fact side note is, pardon me, what did Ford say about what color can you have? Remember, he had a monopoly on the automotive industry, and he said this, kind of fun. You could have any color as long as it's black. That's kind of fun. Why? Why did he have black? A number of reasons, probably more than I actually understand, but two of them are no changeovers. If everything was black, he could make more cars. There was less complexity. His supply chain was shorter and tighter, so everything was black. The other reason is black flashed or dried quicker than any other color. They would park it out in the sun. Boom, it's dry, it's cured, you can sell it. Lean thinking at its core before it was even lean. Lean, of course, if you've been following along with me, comes from Toyota. And these are the 5 principles of lean that have been developed through Toyota. It's number 1, define value. Clearly understanding that the customers are the one who define value. What's the customer willing to pay for? That's the question we need to ask. When you're doing anything and you look around, you could ask yourself, am I, as the customer, willing to pay for what's happening here? Once you put on those lean lenses, you could never take them off. In fact, I love it. I was in Walmart a couple weeks ago and I saw people huddling together during working hours. They were having a huddle and there was like a leader, it seemed like, and 5 or 6 staff members. And I'm like, well, that's not value add to me as a customer. Am I willing to pay for that? And then I decided I am, because it's making the whole system more efficient. They're going to provide better service to me by virtue of having this pre-shift huddle. But I recognized it, and that's key. You have to put those lenses on, and you have to pursue your vision of improving your workplace through the things you've learned, starting with defining value by the customer's perspective. Then we map the value stream. I'm going to get into that in more detail, but mapping the value stream is where we find value. That's what it's about. We make our value stream, we make our processes visual, we assign value, Boom, away we go. Ask ourselves, what are we going to improve? And let's focus on reducing the non-value added activities. So that's the power of lean. It's focused on reducing the things that don't add direct value to our customer. It's not working harder. It's not speeding up the value added components most times, at least not to start there. We don't need the drill bit to turn faster or the welder to draw a bead quicker. We don't need that to start. We need to make sure those things are happening more often. Create flow. Create flow helps us identify opportunities, issues, helps us to see improvement opportunities within our organizations, and help us to focus on reduced batch sizes. We need to establish pull. This is pulling from the internal customer and pulling all the way back to the external customer. So we're providing what's needed when it's needed in the right amount. And then Dr. Deming taught us this: pursue perfection. He just taught it in a different way. He said, plan, do, check, act. That's what it is, pursuing perfection. Let's do it again. So as I mentioned, and you should know by now, Toyota started lean, and they didn't call it lean. They just did things better because they were on the verge of bankruptcy. They called in this brilliant, motivated, operational leader by the name of Taiichi Ono, and he transformed the organization by starting with visiting the North American auto manufacturing plants, who were quite successful back in the day, as they continue to be. But he took their best practices, packaged them together, and layered on this piece: people engagement. Back in the day, we would hire people to get the job done, to put the widgets together, to put the bolt in the hole and the nut on the end. And we didn't engage them in the way Toyota learned to engage them. Following this philosophy, we hire people for their hands in manufacturing. We get their hearts and their minds for free. So how do we do that? This is what Taiichi Ono built into his processes. Let's stay focused on process. Let's engage people to solve problems every day, because the underlying philosophy to that is nobody knows the issues more than the person doing the job every day. Your leader, your manager, your CEO, your engineer, your ME, they don't know your issues the way you know your issues. They may be able to help solve them. They may be able to help root cause them, but only you know your biggest issues throughout the day. We often start our conversation with what bugs you when we go into organizations as CME facilitators and say to a shop floor person, what bugs you? And once they start listing off the things that bug them, then we bring it back a little bit and we say, what do you own in those issues that you could fix today? And that starts the conversation going about owning leadership, pardon me, owning transformation, true ownership of transformation. So by virtue of that, we need to understand that this can be applied to any environment. And I have personally and successfully applied transformation through lean principles in all these industries you see here. We've got aerospace, we've got aviation, we've got, there's building a, I think that's the James Webb telescope there. I did not work on that project, but applying lean principles there. Healthcare, Medicare, pharmaceutical, food processing, and every type of manufacturing you could imagine. Why does it work in any industry? Here's why. The beautiful thing about lean manufacturing, if you label it manufacturing, is manufacturers do just about everything, and lean is woven through their entire organizations if they're sophisticated manufacturing companies. So think about that. For a manufacturing company, and we're applying lean principles to all of our processes, that would include things like, yes, building widgets, yes, moving material, buying things, sourcing things, designing things, IT, legal, marketing, process design. It doesn't end. We do so many things as manufacturers that these principles apply anywhere. We just change sometimes how we shape our product. Is it information? Is it a widget? Is it a patient? Is it a highly very sensitive to specific standards like pharmaceuticals? We can't afford to make mistakes in pharmaceuticals, right? So It's all the same. When we boil it down, it's a process with an input and an output, and we try to refine the steps to get the job done. That's what lean is. So as I mentioned, it can work not only in any industry, it can work in any factory, old and new. It could work in office environments. As with my intro, we applied lean in very meaningful, transformative ways at through Terranet at Manitoba Land Titles. I have personal experience applying lean and standardized problem solving techniques at Victoria General Hospital, at St. Boniface General Hospital, in the Government of Manitoba Finance Department. Manitoba Hydro is doing this, MPI, which is the Manitoba Public Insurance, and it applies everywhere because it works. That's why it continues to live on. So at its heart, you should know this. What is lean? It shows us that our customer defines the value. It trains us through standard methodologies that it trains us to see the opportunities for improvement through identifying the non-value added activities and giving us the tools to eliminate the non-value added activities. It effectively reduces the time it takes us to do a job so we become more competitive. That's what it's about. It's about being competitive. It's about sustainability in our environments, in our neighborhoods, in our sectors, so we can compete globally. And now it's more important than ever before that we are focused on global competition, right? So here's an example of adding value versus non-value added activities. So just basically, what is the customer going to pay for? And everything else is non-value added. So I like to think of non-value added activities, some of them, which we would call non-value added but necessary. I like to think of those as enablers. Like, for instance, we need to put paper in the photocopier in order to get the print on the page. I don't really want to pay more for people to load the photocopier. If I wanted to do that, they would probably have people hired just to put one sheet at a time. No, we have big batches that go into there, so we reduce the setup time and frequency. But I understand it enables the print to go on the page. Value added, non-value added, but necessary. And these are the two examples. Again, is sometimes the unnecessary things just happen because we never gave ourselves the opportunity to assess and dissect a process. We just said, hey, this is the way it's always been done. So now through lean, we're going to give ourselves the chance to do that. And we're going to do some of those necessary but non-value added steps. We'll just do them quicker, or we'll reduce the pieces we don't need in those steps. Because this is a typical timeline. If that represents a week lead time, in a typical manufacturing company, between 70 and 95% of everything we do is non-value added. All those enablers or the noise that gets in the way of us doing the actual job is non-value added. So let's focus on the red. Who cares if you focus on the green? Imagine speeding up the time it takes to do the value added activities in this scenario because of the ratio. If we reduce the time by 50%, of doing the value-added activities, like we speed up the drill bit, how fast the welder goes, things like that, we're only saving a sliver of time in the overall lead time. But what if we're able to reduce the non-value-added activity by 10%? Has a much greater impact in this scenario. And as I say, in North America, we're between 70 and 95% of what we do is non-value added. Let's focus on the waste. That's what we want to get rid of. Just get rid of all that stuff that our customer doesn't want to pay for. How do we identify it? Where is the waste? Well, we like to start with Tim Woods. Train your brain to understand where the waste is through remembering this acronym, Tim Woods. And I'm sorry, Mr. Woods, if you're watching here today, as a person, I'm sure you're a great guy, but as a waste in our manufacturing plants, this is what we're going to attack and try to remove. Transportation. Anytime something's moving, not adding value. Inventory, excess inventory to be precise, not adding value, just adding cost. We have to move it, warehouse it, count it, lose it, break it, count it again, lose it again, find it, racking, where storage space, heated space, inventory. It's crazy. Like we just need the right amount to do a day's worth of work, maybe. In some of the Toyota plants, some of their major components have 2 hours of inventory. That's it. Imagine if you go from 2 months worth of inventory to 2 hours of inventory, what you can do with that additional space, the value you can add. Oh, gives me chills. Motion. Anytime we're moving, we're not adding value. And we have to look at that. Waiting, that makes sense, right? If we're waiting for things, if we're over processing things, doing more than the customer actually wants to pay for, that's not value added. Overproduction, the symptom of that is often work in process. We're doing more than their internal customer can consume. Defects speak for themselves. That's not adding value, and that it has an extreme impact on our overall lead time. And for reworking things, I remember my good buddy and former coworker Brett Hiscock taught me this. He says, "Why is it that so many of our members don't have time to do it right, but they always find time to do it twice?" So think of it that way. And thank you for that, Brett. And also skills, not utilizing the skills and the passion and the energy we have in the room. And one way this manifests is if we're not solving problems together. We can't solve problems in a vacuum. It's a team sport. How do we really understand the issues? Is go to Gemba. Gemba isn't just going to the shop floor where the problem occurred. It's going to where the truth is found or the actual place to understand. Humble inquisition about what's going on. Learn about the process. The more you learn about the process, the fewer surprises there are. And if you're a leader, the more you could coach staff on owning problems and solutions. So, as a gift to you, this has been sent to you before. I challenge you to go to your Gemba and look for Tim Woods. Come up with the list of the wastes you see and the opportunities to improve it. This only really works in a no-blame environment. And I've listed some of the other things that I'm going to go through coming up and through some of the other webinars. But the no blame is all about making sure people have the tools they need to do the job properly. And tools include training, support, time, encouragement, and of course, materials, proper safe working conditions, the proper tools, and so on. But if we have all those things together, we need to be sure that no blame doesn't mean no accountability. That means people are accountable for the work they do. But if there's a mistake, let's look at the process first, because that means something has broken down, allowing an employee to make a mistake in our process. So let's fix the process. For no blame to work, the process must be standardized and the employees must have the knowledge and skills to do the job. It goes without saying, but think about it. Do all of our employees have the knowledge and skills to do the job? If not, we need to get them there. Employees must understand the implications of their actions. It's not good enough just to say, here's what you need to do. But it's also important to have staff and each other and yourselves understand, if I do something wrong, here's what can happen. It makes it more memorable and more meaningful. Everyone must know the boundaries of their authority as well. So don't overstep, don't understep. You need to go to Gemba. You need to seek understanding when you go to Gemba. Remember, humble inquisition. You have to be supportive when there's a problem in particular. You need to build each other up. Apply formal problem-solving methods and never give up. Don't just go there and brainstorm randomly. Follow a method. What's the issue? Let's all agree on the issue. What are some of the root cause? Let's get down to the root cause by challenging each of those issues through the 5 whys. Let's come up with solutions. Then it's not coming from my experience or my gut or my how I'm feeling that day. It's a methodical way of getting to proper solutions that'll stick. A good way to do this is I'm just going to breeze through these as a reminder, but I absolutely love this and try to remember these every time I'm faced with a challenge or trying to build a stronger team or onboarding new team members. It's the 11 commandments of a highly effective workplace or a highly engaged team by Ian Percy. Help each other be right, not wrong. Look for ways to make new ideas work, not for reasons why they won't. If in doubt, check it out. In other words, go to Gemba. And that could mean talking to each other. Don't make assumptions about each other. This is so frustrating in the workplace. Don't go to your neighbor saying, "Hey, do you know what John did? I saw him screw up something." Why don't you go talk to John and say, "Hey, John, I saw you screw something up. What happened? Can I help?" That leads to number four, help each other win and take pride in each other's victories. Let's be happy for each other as we succeed. Speak positively about each other and about our organization. And I like this PMA, positive mental attitude, no matter what the circumstances. And I had one yesterday. If you joined in and you saw me trying to get the tech to work, it was a very uncomfortable activity, and I kept focusing on what do we need to do, and let's get to the problem here. Act with initiative as if everything depends on you. Do everything with enthusiasm. It's contagious. Whatever you want, give it away. Don't lose faith, never give up. And our favorite, always on one of the ground rules, is have fun. We also talked here in webinar 6 about Hansai. This is a really good culture building tool. Hansai really, in my words, what it means is reflect with purpose. Han means looking back to the past, that represents reflecting, and Sai is narrow eyes or carefully, which is focus. So looking back with purpose and focus. And we typically do this after a Kaizen event or a transformation event, or some used to call it post-mortem. We'll just do a Hansai. What went well, what didn't go well, all with the understanding of we want to do better next time with a similar project or the same process or something completely different with the same people. We take ownership of these things. And this is really often blended into huddles. One of the most powerful tools I've come across in my career as a leader is a daily huddle. Even in the office environment, daily huddles are helpful. They build teams, they help people show up on time and know what each other are doing. In some cases, maybe we've gone from instead of every day to 3 times a week. We could do it in manufacturing, healthcare office. Again, it works everywhere. I was over at Rimex, who's actually presenting at our conference in just 4 weeks from now. An incredible story they have as well. But they have Q-dip boards everywhere, or others call them SQ-dip for the safety. But it's just about having some measures with purpose, and in this case, making it visual. Safety, quality, delivery, inventory, productivity. What are the 3 to 6 important elements for your team to measure that are meaningful to them? In this case, you can see how it works. If you haven't seen this before, you just color in the squares. Each square represents a day of the month, so you can visually see the green means we hit target, and then there's yellow, we're close or we're just off, and then there's red, which means we've missed it. So this gives us a visual indicator of where we are, and it drives that Hansai type reflection and team huddle. Now, a couple more philosophies here. Getting to the end, bear with me. These are reminders, if nothing else. Again, I'm trying to get you inspired and amped up to come to Embracing Excellence and share your experiences with others so you can in turn help your fellow manufacturer or process owner at any level to do a better job serving the customer. So 7 thoughts of improvement, just like safety, just like quality, it's everyone's job. It's not John's job. It's not the lean facilitator's job or the lean practitioner's job. They may be the catalyst, but it's everyone's job to think about productivity, to think about improvement. Know what something is before you change it. Don't just go yanking stuff out until you know what things are. You wouldn't weed a garden, the corn row, if you didn't know what baby corn looked like, would you? Because what if you start yanking out the baby corn? Then everything you're cleaning up is meaningless because you're going to have no crop at the end of the year. So know what something is before you change it. How do you do this? Well, you talk to people. You go to Gemba. You have to be deliberate. It doesn't happen by itself. Get to the root cause by asking why 5 times, and that's a rule of thumb. Just why, gets you to the root cause. We can learn a lot from our 4 and 5-year-olds of the world. They're just seeking to understand, right? Why? My little grandson, Louis, hopefully will be in that phase in the next couple of years of asking why. And I'll have much more patience this time around than I did when my 3 children were that age. Discard old attitudes. Anything's possible. And this is tough, particularly if you're have senior tenure in your organization, that maybe you've tried things before and you've been burned. But try again. Try again. Don't say just because it didn't work last time, it won't work this time. And those tie 5 and 6 together as well. Be open to new ideas. More ideas are better. More ideas, even I like saying this because it gets a chuckle sometimes, but I'm sure you've all heard there's no such thing as a bad idea. Well, let me tell you, I've heard many bad ideas and I love them. I've heard some downright dumb ideas, but I love them because they generate creative innovation, spin-off ideas that are better than what we're doing today. Consider how to make ideas work, not why they won't, and don't substitute money for brains, because we can fix a lot of this, drive out a lot of the waste just by thinking it through, just by working together without huge investment. One of the backbone tools for continuous improvement is 5S. It's a workplace, visual workplace and visual factory. It's a standardized work environment. That's what it's all about. It's not just about clean. That's the third S, which is shine. But we first of all need to understand what our area is supposed to be doing, what it's built for, and then we sort, take all the things out we don't need. We set in order, deliberately put the things we need in the right place, in the most meaningful place. We shine it. That means make it clean, tidy, paint it, sweep it, degrease it, sharpen it, fix it, make it in as new condition as possible. Then we standardize it so that it's repeatable. A good example of this is if you have a tool board that's set in order, we standardize it by putting a shadow around it. Now it's a shadow board and it's standardized, and that leads us to sustain. We have to create the habit. We often do that through audits and through accountability. 5S. Wonderful thing about 5S is it's very visual, and you're able to challenge yourself to be an early adopter. If you're not, you'll see that your place gets disorganized, unstandardized, and messy real quick. We also use Kanban. I'm not going to go through this in a whole lot of detail, but what it really is about is having a visual signal to build or replenish. So predetermined amounts, with the idea being, as soon as we take the last one of whatever it is, say a bolt from a bin, before we need the next one, the new supply is there. So we don't have excess inventory, but we have just the right amount, where we need it, when we need it, so just in time. And often we use the 2-bin system. We'll use a Kanban card like this. And the biggest challenge with Kanban, in my experience, especially if it's not reordering, but sometimes with reordering, but building things internally for the internal customer, is keeping to the maximum amount. We have a tendency to say, oh, I've always built 100. I'm not comfortable building 18 right now, so I'm going to build 25. Don't do that. You won't know if the Kanban system's working. Build 18, adjust if you need to. We've got the Lean Toolbox. This is just a visual representation to show a couple things. There's tons of tools that drive us towards continuous improvement. Loads of tools. This is just a snippet, but they're almost all team-based. It's a team sport, my friends. And they should be supported by the value stream map, because the value stream map helps us to see where the biggest opportunities are, helps us to align as team members, and helps us to really get the most out of our time spent, or the biggest bang for the time and effort spent, biggest bang for the buck in that way, by aligning on where we should focus our time. And this is what a value stream map should look like. We start with our SIPOC, supplier, input, process, output, customer. That gives us a high-level scope. Then we move down to our actual scope, the bookends, the start and end steps. Then we identify the phases. So these are the main buckets of activity that happen within that scope. phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. We populate the detailed steps in the middle. Again, working together deliberately on brown paper, post-it notes, duking things out along the way, disputing things, agreeing and disagreeing along the way. This is all part of the process. Remember the learnings and the struggles. So sometimes this is tough. Two operators who do the very same job, who get the very same output, don't necessarily do it the very same way. So it's uncomfortable talking about the best ways sometimes. They may have very different issues as well. So value stream map helps us to build that alignment over and above putting post-it notes on the wall. We'll do the value assessment. That's the dots on there. So green for value added, blue for non-value added but necessary, and in this case, red for waste or non-value added. We'll do some times. Here we have best and worst times representative. And then we focus on, well, based on what we're trying to achieve through this value stream map, where are the points of cause? In other words, the biggest contributor to the barrier of where we need to go. So in this case, let's say a cycle time reduction. It's not always the longest cycle time that we'll focus on. Maybe it's the one that has the most variability, or the one that we just feel innately shouldn't even exist because it could be like a rework loop. Why are we doing rework? Let's get rid of the rework instead of just building that into our cycle time, things like that. Point of cause. Once we identify point of cause, we'll talk about issues together. Just free brainstorming. What are the issues related to the process step? And that'll lead us then to asking our 5 whys, getting to the root cause. That's where we want to be, because all too often when we don't follow this methodology, we'll be solving an issue, which is a symptom of a root cause. And then the issue comes up again, and we're like, oh, so frustrated, right? I solved this like 4 months ago. How come we're dealing with this again? Oh my gosh, if Johnny would just do his expense reports properly. Well, wait a minute. Maybe it's because we didn't solve the issue at the root. If we solve it at the root, we can be pretty sure that it's not going to come up again. And then with the root causes, then we brainstorm solutions. And the nice thing here is 2 things. Solutions at this point are already easy to identify because you've done all the work and your brain is ready to throw out the solutions. But many of the solutions will apply to many other processes that might not even be related to my example. Johnny's doing the expense report. Maybe it's related to other things like invoicing or timekeeping, or you name it. The solutions to root causes generally apply to multiple things that sometimes that we haven't even thought of. And of course, it's building a culture of continuous improvement along the way. Once we've come up with our solutions, we throw them on a value graph. This is just a good tool to prioritize and to identify the most value. So of course, the ones we really like are the gems. You could see the axis there from left to right is benefit and value. The further to the right, the more value. The higher up we go, the more effort or cost. So I like to frame it this way. The gems are the must-dos. Little effort, little cost, lots of value, likely reoccurring value. Quick hits are the right things to do. Like we just know it's the right thing to do. Doesn't necessarily add a lot of value, but not directly anyway. Things like change a light bulb, wash a window, dust off the table or the shelves, things like that. And strategic would typically be the projects. Maybe they need some ROI calculations or third-party support or leadership approval. And then the park would be ideas that would be out of scope. There you go. So do these now, do those, the right things to do, also do them now, and plan the valuable projects for later. So that's it. That is, in a whirlwind tour, 39.5 minutes of sharing with you how to transform your organization. Of course, you're not going to be able to do this by watching a podcast or even experimenting once or twice. You have to be committed to the transformation, and it'll pay off in dividends. I can tell you from experience, applying these tools that I just walk you through, even a month ago at a company I was at in Alberta, we ended up reducing, over the course of 3 days, implemented solutions to reduce a 4-hour changeover time to 2.5 hours. Repeatable, consistent with quality. This isn't fake. This is real. This is business transformation at its finest. Do we always get a 45% improvement? No, we don't. Do we sometimes get a 5% improvement? Yes. Sometimes a 2% improvement. Generally, when we're focused on using Kaizen as a transformation event, we will get, if you scope it properly, we'll get between a 7 to 15% improvement. Imagine that. For 2 to 3 days of your time, you get a 7 to 15% repeatable improvement. And yeah, sometimes you knock it out of the park and you get a 40 or 50% improvement. Amazing. Other times you find strategic solutions that can give you a 40 to 50% improvement, but will take 6 months to implement. You have to do this stuff. I urge you to come to the conference and listen to these stories from our 36 practitioner presentations. The best stories on the market, not on the market, the best stories out there. These are genuine people who do the job every day, who have stories to tell about where they've been successful and where they haven't been successful. And they're going to share this with you because they care. 21 best practice tours to choose from. Come and see some of the finest in the Winnipeg area. 21 tours. You choose which 2 or more to go to. You're guaranteed 2 tours. 7 keynote speakers, world-class speakers you don't want to miss. Tons of networking, encouragement, motivation. If you call me, we're in the last stretch here with just under 4 weeks to go to the launch of our conference. Call me and I could hook you up with a discount that'll get you up to 50% discount to the conference. It's 4 days of immersed learning. If you're local in Winnipeg, you could do badge sharing. You could send a different person every day. If you're flying in for this event, join us for all 4 days. You'll leave with a whole new perspective of how to transform your organization. On our website, you'll be able to find a snippet of our, this is a snippet of the schedule you'll find on our website. We keep it live and updated. But you could choose from multiple events, tours, and extracurricular events every day. So there's an example of our schedule. I really can't wait for these stories to immerse, for things to bubble up, and people to get motivated by the things we'll be talking about June 9th to 12th and beyond, but 9th to 12th for the conference. Please join us there. Join our exhibitors, our sponsors. They're not there just because they're sponsoring. They're there because they can help you. And I really look forward to seeing you at hopefully the next step in your lean and transformation journey, which will be Lean Conference in Winnipeg. Hope to see you there. Thank you so much for bearing with me for these 12 sessions, I believe it has been, and for sticking this through. Remember, you have the recording. Use it wisely. Use it where you wish. And I look forward to chatting with you again soon. All the best. God bless.